Hi guys, and welcome back to the ITH channel, where today we have the brand new Toyota Corolla GR Sport. So welcome to the brand new Toyota Corolla. That's right, I said Corolla. The RS is gone and the Corolla is back, and it comes in a few different flavors. This is currently the top of the range flavor. It is the GR Sport. What does GR stand for, Christian? Well, GR stands for Gazoo Racing. Gazoo Racing are kind of like, let's call it the Audi RS equivalent. It's Toyota's sports division, Gazoo Racing, and you'd find the GR badge on the back of the likes of the brand new Toyota Supra. This is the GR Sport, which means it's more about styling than it is about performance. So it's the same engine that you'd find in a lot of the other Corollas in the range, but you get this slightly more aggressive body kit, and the interior has changed slightly as well. Let's have a look at this body kit because I think it looks great. Now, there's a little bit of camera trickery that Toyota have managed to pull off with this, because it looks a bit wider than some of the other Corollas in the range, and that is all due to this front body kit that they've put on it. It's exactly the same dimensions, but it looks a bit wider and a bit more aggressive, and I really like what they've done with this. You've got this cool honeycomb effect here on the front, which reminds me slightly of the BMW M135i. I do like that. As we come round, there's all these piano black finishing that you get, so around by the fog light down here. Loving the new headlights. As we come around here as well, these are the brand new 18-inch wheels that you'll find on the GR Sport. I think they look great with the black and of course the polished lip and the little accents coming around there. As we come down, hybrid, because this is a hybrid car, and you'll find that logo of course on the back of something like a Prius, which I'm sure I'll mention in the review more than once. As we come down here as well, you get the piano black roof, piano black wing mirrors on here as well, and this comes in two different flavors. This is the hatchback that we have today. Also comes in a touring as well, which I really like the look of the touring. I think that looks absolutely stunning. That comes with slightly smaller wheels than this one, so that will come with the 17-inch optional wheels rather than this, which is the 18. And as we come round to the back, you've got, of course, the GR Sport logo here on the rear, just followed by another hybrid logo, just to let everyone know that's behind you that you have got a little bit of electric power. And I think just in general, the styling's lovely. There is one slight issue. On the rear bumper here, it looks like it's got two lovely looking exhausts. It hasn't, they are fake. It's just a piece of plastic behind each of those, and the exhaust is actually tucked underneath and just kind of comes out at the back. It's a small point to make, but I wanted to make sure that you knew all of the facts before we went on. Safe to say, I really like the styling of the GR Sport. It's rather tasty. Practicality test then, let's have a look in the boot of the new Corolla. So this has 361 litres, which is around about 20 more than, say, a Ford Fiesta. And it's rather large. You get pretty much what you want in there. And of course, you've got the two bi-folding rear seats there, large folding one on the right and the smaller one on the left. So let's have a look in the back of the new Corolla. And the first thing you notice is that actually you don't get as much room as I thought you would. I'm a 5'10" human, and that is my seating position in the front, and in the rear, it's okay for short journeys, I think. In terms of space, not too bad. You could get three people across. It is going to feel rather cramped. This is a bit weird. I thought that they might put like a pull on this, because you have to get your fingers in between the leather to bring down the center armrest, and then you have two cup holders there. Not the only cup holders in the back though, because in terms of storage in the door, you have a tiny little bit of space here where I have no idea what you put in there, maybe a little bit of lippy, and a cup holder there. And what I found quite amusing was there's a little symbol just above the cup holder saying that please don't put anything that doesn't have a lid on there, because if the driver in front is driving rather aggressively, it may spill. A little bit more storage here, and that's kind of the back done really. Nothing much to say. So let's jump in the front. So as we get into the new Corolla, just got to mention the lovely GR kick plate down here. It's rather a nice touch. With the GR Sport, you get these really nice sport seats with the red and white contrasted stitching. And actually, I've not really ever thought about it, which is a good thing in a car. If you don't think about something, it usually means it's quite good. And they're rather nice to sit in. unlike a few other bits on the inside that feel a little bit cheap and nasty. For me, the volume control on the steering wheel just feels like it is going to pop out at some point. And the biggest bugbear I have about this car is on the gear stick. I mean, there's a button on the kind of the front of it, which you pull to then be able to put it into reverse, neutral, etc., etc. And that honestly feels like it's about to fall out. Not a big fan of that. I have to say, I'm rather a big fan, though, of the steering wheel. I don't think I've ever mentioned that in a car before. I'm not really picking at things here, but this feels quite nice. It feels rather solid. So do the stalks as well on the left and the right of the wheel. You get Toyota's new multimedia system, which comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto for seamless smartphone integration with this lovely 7-inch screen in front of me here, which took me probably about 5 or 10 minutes to get used to. And then once I was quite happy with it. I was a bit disappointed that the volume control here on the left doesn't click like the tune scroll does on the right, because I like to go up by 1 or 2 little notches. With this, it's more, I don't know, it just feels a bit odd. Something I do like is what you get to look at when you're driving. You get a lovely little screen in front of you with 2 dials either side. One is for speed and one is for revs. Now, the issue that I've got with this is that the only way to tell how fast you're going is either by looking at the speedo on the front display or by looking at the head-up display. A lot of newer cars now have a digital readout in the middle, and this has got plenty of real estate to be able to house that, but it doesn't, and there's no way I found on the option to be able to show you just a big digital speedo. So you have to look at the kind of Tom Cruise fighter pilot-esque head-up display, which I've never massively been a fan of. In terms of storage, well, there's enough. There's 2 cup holders here. Love a cup holder in a Toyota. You've got a little bit of storage here in the front bin with a 12-volt, 120-watt cigarette lighter. You've got a little bit of storage in the sides here, and then, of course, glove box is, as you'd expect, a normal size glove box. I quite like the styling, I have to admit. It looks a little bit like the outside, really. It looks like they've brought a bit of the outside on the inside with the kind of the vents and everything. And it's rather a nice place to sit if it does feel a little bit cheap. However, this is the GR Sport. We should go out on the road and see how it performs, because we need to talk about that engine. And thanks to the guys at BOTB.com, they have a dream car winner every single week. You only have to be 16 or older to enter, and it's a worldwide competition. They have over 150 different cars in the lineup that you can win. Tickets start from just 85p. If you play this week, best of luck. So what's the new Corolla like to drive? Well, that all depends on what driving mode you have it in, and that can be switched down here by the gear lever. You can have it in Eco, Normal, or Sport, where the dials go red. So we're in Eco at the moment, and I tell you what, this is providing some really good miles per gallon. We're well above 50. Now this, as I mentioned, this is the 1.8 litre engine, which has 120 brake horsepower, which is by no means hot hatch standard, but it will return, as I said, well north of 50 miles per gallon, and it uses its hybrid system really well. It's exactly the same powertrain that you'd find in the Toyota Prius, and that's not a bad thing, because, well, if you ever get into an Uber in London, it's probably a Prius, and they all drive those cars because they're not too bad. This feels a little bit more well built, and especially the way it drives, which I'll come into in a minute. There is also a 2-litre version of this engine, which comes in at 180 brake horsepower, which has got to be slightly more lively than this, because there's really not much to this 1.8, I'm not going to lie. You can put your foot flat to the floor like this, and you just get quite a lot of engine sound and not really any performance. What's quite nice is, though, once you get through the driving modes into Sport and you get the red dial in front of you, it gives you a little bit more boost from the electric motor, and that really does make it feel a lot more sporty than the engine actually does. It's all down to the hybrid system on this car, which gives it any kind of credibility to be a hot hatch. But there is one thing that's very special about this car, and it is just the way it drives. It's not the power delivery, because that's not particularly fantastic, but it's the way it rides over things and the way it corners. The suspension has been set up really, really well. I own a Golf, and this drives better than my Golf does, I have to admit. Now we must talk about the hybrid system for just a second. There's no way of plugging this car in. It regenerates all of its power by basically using engine braking, and there's a couple of ways it will do that. It will do that by you putting your foot on the brake. It will start to harvest power there, and it will also harvest power if you put it into B mode down here. So I was in D for drive. Now on the gear stick, I've moved it to B. Now what B does is it basically gives you a bit more engine braking and it recovers a bit more power. And actually what you can find you can do is near enough just drive it just with the accelerator. It gives you just enough braking once you come off the accelerator to slow you down enough, and it will also start to regenerate a bit of power for you there as well. So unfortunately, the sound of the Corolla GR Sport, being that it is just the same engine as you'd get in any of the Corolla latest models, it's a bit like a hairdryer really. It doesn't really give you much performance, but the added benefit of that electric motor really is the thing that gives you any kind of driving pleasure, because you get that lovely bit of instant torque, especially if you're in sport mode, and it's plenty for driving around town. You do feel like it runs out a little bit of steam when you're on the motorway, but I think in most driving situations, driving this around 90% of the time I've been in town, and it's been rather pleasurable actually. So what do I think of the new Toyota Corolla GR Sport? Well, I think it's Toyota's secret weapon at the moment, and I say that because I reckon in the next 12 months we're going to get the fully fledged GR version, which will come with a real engine, because that 1.8 litre in there is pretty gutless, and it's a good job this thing's hybrid because that's the only thing that really gives it any power. Everything else is really good. The suspension is great. The way it drives is really good. It's just let down by the engine. Now, of course, as I mentioned, you can go for the 2 litre, which is pushing on for nearly £30,000 for the little Corolla. And bearing in mind, when you can get something like a Hyundai i30N for 26 grand, this makes this car look rather expensive. But you do get, of course, the fantastic fuel economy with this hybrid system, which is very, very good. And guys, please do remember to check out botb.com, because those guys give away a dream car every single week. The link's in the description below. You only have to be 16 or older to enter, and it's a worldwide competition. You can have a look at all of the previous winners, more than 500 of them now, on the botb.com website. And of course, we'll be back here on the ITA's channel with more content real soon. But for now, bye. And I'd say the party piece of the Corolla, as weird as this sounds, is actually how well it rides over, say, a sleeping... didn't particularly ride over that pothole well.